Hey guys, this is Shane here from Echo Soundworks, and in this video we'll be recreating the drop to Fisher's You Little Beauties. Got me burning up with your... So this track blew up in 2019. It was pretty big because he was playing it live all the time in 2018. And I've gotten a lot of requests to look at how to recreate some of the sounds in Serum specifically. So we're going to do that in this video. So let's listen to my version mixed with the actual track. So the purple track is the original track, right? That's Little Beauty. The tealish blue track, that is what I created. So we have a kick, snare, hi-hat, bass, and some other little kind of ad-lib instruments as we go. So it bounces back and forth. Let's have a listen. Got me burning up with your... All right, so it sounds pretty similar. So let's dive in and get started. All right, so first thing, let's go through the drums. Now, if you're trying to recreate a track where the drum pattern is 4 on the floor and it's a house track like this, or a tech house, deep house, whatever type of house it is, more often than not, you're gonna be able to just take the drums straight from that track if you want to really, dive in and learn about what made that track have that vibe, especially with the drums. So that's what I did here. And what I actually noticed was the kick is very analog sounding. Right? It's not necessarily super punchy, but it has some weight and it has a lot of tonality to it, which I thought was interesting. I actually layered in my own clap because I had a hard time getting a clap that was isolated from the kick. So it sounds like this. Right? It's kind of a white noise-esque clap with a little bit of reverb. And then like a classic drum machine clap. Super dry, right? Now the hats I actually took from the track itself and just EQ'd the heck out of it. If we look at the EQ curve here, we turn this off, we're gonna hear a lot of bass. Right, so taking the drums is actually pretty easy. I'm not gonna show you guys that process from scratch because it's that easy. So for the kick, I just went to bar 11 because I knew the kick was always gonna be, on the downbeat of each bar, and I was trying to find a clean bar. A lot of times you won't be able to find a clean kick on the first bar of the drop or section that you're trying to take because there's usually maybe some reverb or delay from the previous section, which we can hear here. Right, so I just went to bar 11 and you just cut it, and then it's just a two-step process of trimming, and then maybe a little bit of EQ. So if I copy and paste this over here, hear that click at the end, right? So I'm just gonna zoom in to see what's going on with that, and probably just need to, just trim it a little bit. All right, so I repeated that process obviously with the hi-hats, and we ended up here with this drum sound. All right, so now it's time to recreate the main bass patch. So first things first is we're going to take the octave in our oscillator down to -2. From there, I'm gonna load up an analog waveform. Fisher's sound is fairly analog in this sound, everything from the drums to the bass. So working with a more analog saw or maybe a triangle waveform is gonna get you closer starting point than a really digital sounding saw. So I'm gonna work with the basic MDC waveform, and I'm using this because it has a nice triangle waveform at the end. Right, this is great for subs, by the way. And if you dial it back a little bit, you kind of get this weird, kind of like it's starting to morph into a couple different saw cycles with that triangle bass, right? So there's a good amount of bass there. So because it's a tech house bass, those usually have a good amount of low end in them, right? So a little bit more than just a basic saw wave. So that's why I'm going with this waveform. Now, what you want to do is pretty important to this sound. Take this random knob down to 0%, maybe 1 to 5% if you're getting any clicks. What this does is it's gonna, when you play a note in Serum, it's gonna start to change if you have the random all the way up. It can mess around with where the phase basically is gonna start every time you trigger a note. Well, we want a really consistent starting point, right? So the phase I'm gonna put down to the left and random. So now it's always gonna start right at the beginning of the actual waveform cycle. Now from there, let's go and load up a bend plus minus. Now I'm doing this because I want a little bit more of a nasally brassy sound because Fisher's bass actually has a little bit of high end kind of just peeking through. And this is gonna add a little bit. Now I might have to go back and change this once we start adding our filter, but let's just try this. All All right, so that sounds like a pretty good starting point. Let's go and change our voicing to mono. All right, now it's time for the filter, and the filter is a huge component of the sound. So let's go and load up a MG Low 24, which means it's a 24 decibel per octave low pass filter. So it's more of an aggressive slope. It's reducing more high frequencies at a lesser cutoff, as opposed to say the 18, 12, and 6. So let's go to our second envelope, and we're going to use this to modulate our filter. So I'm going to pop it here for now. And I'm going to start to craft my shape. Now the shape's kind of like a weird triangle. Add a little bit of attack, shorten the decay. That's not a little bit of attack. That was a lot of attack. Maybe about 15 to 20 milliseconds, somewhere there. All right, we're going to add a little bit of resonance, and we're going to turn up the fat a little bit. All right, so now it sounds, kind of like a funky synth bass. So we're going to roll this back. So the cutoff, let's put this about 24 hertz. And we're going to take this down to about 33. Maybe 35. Right, and now let's start to move the resonance around. It has a big effect on the sound. Turn drive up. And we're starting to get the Fisher bass sound. So now what you can do is we're going to go to our main envelope, and we're going to make the shape a little bit more conducive to the sound. So I'm going to turn the decay down a little bit and the sustain down just a little. All right, let's go back to our envelope, and let's turn the decay down just a little bit more. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to get a little bit more high-end poking through. So to do that, I'm going to load up and just a basic shape. So we'll go to analog, and we're going to go to basic shapes, and we're going to go to the saw waveform here, and we'll solo oscillator B. Right, tune this down to -2. Same thing, phase, random, and we're going to route that into the filter. And let's take the warp mode, the same warp mode we use, the bend plus minus, and we're going to make this really nasally and brassy. And now we can blend these two together. All right, so to finish up this video, I'm actually going to try to create my own kind of tech house, deep tech bass line inspired by Fisher. Now that I got everything mapped out, I can kind of, I replayed the bass, remade it. I have a pretty good understanding of what's going to make this type of song tick. So I just duplicated the track, and let's try to record something in. Basically what I did was I noticed from the theory of replaying the bass line, there's some half steps in there that kind of gives it that dark, mysterious tone. Right, let me turn off kickstart. And I noticed that there's obviously space. So here is Fisher's bass MIDI that I replayed, and we'll make that a purple track, and we'll make this a pink track. So you can see that there's gaps, there's spaces. So what I wanted to do, obviously with the one I just played, was have a little bit of gap and space, because that's when he starts to throw in the ear candy, like the vocal sounds and the the little chops. All right, so I'd recently made a crazy lead sound. It's called Raspberry. It's an unreleased pack, but you guys can get a little preview of it. It sounds like this. Right, it is absolutely crazy. So let's try throwing that in right when the drop hits. And let's actually just kind of chop that note right there. All right, guys, that's going to sum up the video. If you guys like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you do subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get an update when we release a new video. If you have any questions or comments, post those below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Like always, thank you so much for watching, guys. The support does mean a lot. All right, I'll see you next time.